Someone senior asked you for coffee last week. They have never asked before. They were warm. They said it was nothing formal. They said they just wanted to check in. Maybe they asked about your family. Maybe they remembered something small, a kid's name, a city you used to live in that surprised you. They asked you gently what you really wanted from your career, what your long-term vision was, whether you had ever thought about doing something else. The conversation ended warmly. They paid. They walked you halfway back to your desk. They said it had been good to catch up. And you went back to your laptop and you sat down, and you could not, for the next hour, focus on a single line of work. Something had happened in that conversation. You felt it land. But nothing had been said. There was no document, no warning, no accusation, no agenda. You could not point to a single sentence and say, that one. And in the days that followed, you began to notice small things. A project you used to lead gently passed to someone else. A meeting that used to include you that now seemed to happen without you. A WhatsApp thread you used to be on, going quiet around you. A friend in the office who used to come by your desk, who now does not. Nothing has been said. Nothing has been written. But you cannot escape the strange, quiet certainty that the air in your office has somehow changed temperature. Here is what nobody has ever told you about what you are experiencing. Nobody said you should leave. That is the design. The most expensive exit a company has is the one it cannot deny it caused. So the cleanest exit is the one in which you believe you chose. Tonight, you are going to learn to read the air in the room. And once you can, the system that depended on you not being able to read it stops working in your presence forever. The lawyers have a dry name for what is being done to you. They call it constructive dismissal. The textbook definition is simple. The company does not fire you. The company changes the conditions of your work in a way that any reasonable person in your position would interpret as a signal to leave. It is the legal exposure zero exit. No paper trail of termination. No severance liability. No wrongful dismissal claim. The records will show in the end that you resigned, that you chose, that you left voluntarily for personal reasons. Now look at how the conditions are being changed. The sociologist Robert Jackal, who spent years inside large corporate bureaucracies, identified the central mechanic. Corporations operate on an appearance economy. Every action is structured to look innocent in isolation, even when its aggregate function is anything but. Atmospheric eviction is the appearance economy operating at its absolute quietest. Every single one of the signals you are noticing in isolation has a plausible alternative explanation. The project was reassigned because the team was being restructured. The meeting you stopped being invited to was streamlined for efficiency. The career conversation was just a senior person being thoughtful about your growth. None of these things on its own is anything you could point to, but they were not designed to be pointed to on their own. They were designed to be felt together. There is a sequence to it, and once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. It tends to unfold in roughly this order. First, the work begins to drift. A project that was yours is gently given to someone else. The reason given is always reasonable. A new initiative is offered to appear rather than to you. You are not told you have been passed over. You are simply not told you were in the running. Then the visibility begins to drop. You notice you are not in a meeting you used to attend. You are removed from a distribution list. Your name is not on the document where it used to be. Each individual instance is small. None of them is announced. The accumulation is the message. Then the conversation arrives. The coffee chat. The career chat. The friendly senior who asks you with apparent warmth what you really want, where you see yourself, whether you have thought about doing something else. They may mention a friend at another firm. They may suggest, just casually, that maybe a smaller team or a different kind of work would suit you better. They are not telling you to leave. They are inviting you to think of leaving as your idea. And then finally, the social cooling. The peers who used to come by your desk. The WhatsApp threads. The drinks invitations. The corridor smiles that used to last a fraction of a second longer. None of it disappears. All of it dims. And inside all of this, you ask yourself the question the system needs you to ask. Am I imagining this? Am I being paranoid? Am I making something out of nothing? That question is not a side effect of the process. That question is the product. The instant you begin to doubt your own reading of the room, the system is working exactly as designed. Because a person who doubts what they are experiencing cannot fight what they are experiencing. They can only carry it. Now look at why the design works. Because for that, you have to look outside the office building entirely and into a forest your ancestors lived in for over 1 million years. The primatologist Franz de Waal spent his career documenting how political power moves through primate troops. And his most disturbing finding has nothing to do with violence. It has to do with silence. De Waal showed that when a chimpanzee falls out of favor with the dominant coalition, the troop does not attack him. The troop does something far more devastating. It withdraws him from itself. He is not groomed. The hands that used to find his fur stop finding it. He is not invited to share food. The fruit that used to be passed around no longer reaches him. He is not included in coalition movements. When the troop turns, he is half a beat late and nobody waits. He follows the group at a distance, hoping to be reabsorbed. Most of the time he is not. And eventually, almost without exception, the chimpanzee who has been faded from the troop leaves the troop on his own. He is not exiled by a decision. He is exiled by a temperature. Now here is the part that should change how you understand what is happening to you. Because this process worked on chimpanzees, evolution had to build them, and us, a pain system precisely calibrated to be unbearable. And it did. The neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman and his colleagues, in research now cited across the social sciences and summarized by the evolutionary psychologist William von Hippel, have shown that social exclusion activates the same regions of the human brain as physical pain. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the brain area that lights up when you are physically struck, lights up identically when you are uninvited, ignored, or excluded. Being left off a CC line is not metaphorically like being hit. It is, in the language your nervous system speaks, the same event. And this is not a quirk. This is design. For 1.5 million years, being ostracized from your group on the savannah was a death sentence. So evolution made exclusion hurt as much as a wound, because a brain that did not flinch from exclusion was a brain that did not survive long enough to pass itself on. You are now sitting inside that pain system, and the corporation has not invented anything new. It has simply learned, very precisely, how to weaponize an instrument that was already inside you when you were born. Your manager has not been trained on chimpanzees. Your HR team has not read Duvall. None of them is reciting Lieberman in the meetings where these decisions are being made. They do not have to. The process is older than language. It works through them whether they understand it or not. They are simply the troop withdrawing grooming, and you are simply the chimpanzee feeling the temperature change. Which means the confusion you have been carrying is not a sign that something is wrong with you. The confusion is the correctly functioning output of an ancient pain system being run inside a modern building against a person who was never given the manual to either. Now go back and replay the last 3 months. Slowly, with everything you have just learned. There was a project that used to be yours. Look at when exactly it stopped being yours. Notice that you did not lose it in a meeting. There was no conversation in which someone said, "We are giving this to her instead." The transfer happened in the spaces between meetings. A reply-all email you were not on. A pre-discussion you were not invited to. By the time you noticed, the decision had already been made elsewhere. The meeting where it was confirmed was not where it happened. The meeting was the place it surfaced. There was a recurring meeting that used to include you. Look at when exactly your name came off the invite. Notice that there was no email explaining why. There was no apology. The invite was simply not renewed. If you had asked, you would have received a perfectly reasonable answer about streamlining and efficiency, delivered in a perfectly warm tone. The reason was not the truth. The reason was the cover for the truth. There was a colleague who used to come by your desk 3 times a week. Look at when exactly those visits stopped. Notice that nothing was said. There was no falling out. No conflict. The visits simply tapered. You may have wondered briefly if you had offended them. You had not. They had read the temperature in the room before you had. They were not being cruel. They were doing what their pain system told them to do. Standing too close to someone in atmospheric eviction is, for the people who can sense it earliest, a small risk to their own footing. So they drifted gently to a safer distance. You did not lose a friend. You watched a survival instinct. And then there was the coffee chat. The one where someone senior asked you what you really wanted. Now you can read that conversation correctly. That was not a check-in. That was the moment the design was tested, the moment the system measured how willing you were to entertain the idea that this might not be where you belonged. Every gentle suggestion in that conversation, the friend at another firm, the consulting idea, the smaller team, was a small, deniable nudge. Each one alone was nothing. All of them together were the design. None of these things was an event. Every one of them was a curve. The temperature has been dropping for 90 days. You did not imagine it. You did not exaggerate it. You did not become paranoid. You simply noticed it correctly, without ever having been given the words to describe what you were noticing. And there is a name for the whole pattern. So let us give it the name it was never given. The drifted project, the dropped invitation, the vanished WhatsApp thread, the friendly coffee, the colleague who stopped coming by, the careful, deniable, sincere coolness of every person in your floor. All of it together as a single piece of ancient weather inside a modern building. Atmospheric eviction. The orchestrated, deniable, distributed withdrawal of inclusion, calibrated to activate the human pain system of exclusion until the target removes themselves on their own, with no document, no decision, and no fingerprint. Sit with the word atmosphere because it is the precise one. An atmosphere is not a thing you can touch. It cannot be filed. It cannot be subpoenaed. It does not appear in HR records. It is not in your appraisal. And yet you are inside it every second of every day, and your body reads its temperature continuously, whether you have given it permission to or not. An eviction is the second precise word, because what is happening to you is not termination. It is a quieter, older process, the kind by which troops have removed members for 1.5 million years. Not by force, by climate. And the moment you can name what is being done, the design changes shape entirely. Because every part of an atmospheric eviction depends on the target not having the word for it. The instant you have the word, you stop carrying the confusion as a personal problem and start reading it as a structural process. The process does not stop, but your relationship to it transforms completely. Here is what changes the moment you can read the atmosphere correctly. 5 things, and each one gives you back something the design was quietly going to take. The first thing you get back is your own perception. The whole structure of an atmospheric eviction depends on you doubting what you see. You are not being paranoid. You are not imagining it. You are not making something out of nothing. Every single one of the small things you noticed was real, and you noticed it correctly. The confusion you have been carrying was not a flaw in your reading. It was the absence of a name. You have the name now. Your perception was always accurate. You were simply receiving a signal in a language nobody taught you to read. The second thing you get back is the right size for what is happening. You were treating this as a personal failure, a verdict on your worth, a confirmation that you are somehow the wrong person in the wrong place. None of that is what this is. An atmospheric eviction is a process, not a verdict. The same process has been run on others in this building before you. It will be run on others after you leave. You are not uniquely failing. You are inside a system that, for reasons that have nothing to do with you, has decided to remove you in the least expensive way available to it. That is corporate weather. It is not who you are. The third thing you get back is your composure in the room. Every casual conversation in this period is no longer casual. The coffee chat is not a coffee chat, it is a structured prompt. The career question is not curiosity, it is a measurement. The friendly suggestion to consider consulting is not advice, it is a deniable invitation to leave on your own. You can still be perfectly warm in these conversations. You can still be respectful. You simply do not need to volunteer the material the eviction needs to complete itself. You answer what is asked. You do not narrate your frustrations to people whose job is to record them. You walk out of those rooms with your information intact. The fourth thing you get back is your time. This is the most important and the most counterintuitive. The exit blueprint of an earlier episode, the loud, documented pip, came with a clock printed at the bottom. An atmospheric eviction has no clock. The absence of a clock is itself the weapon. Because the human pain system, faced with continuous low-grade exclusion, escalates. Most people, after weeks of this, leave faster than they would have had to. They cannot bear the temperature. They take the first offer that arrives. They quit without a plan. They do exactly what the design needed them to do, on a timeline the design did not even need to set. The instant you understand the silence is doing the timing for them, you can choose your own pace. You do not have to leave this week. You do not have to leave next month. You leave when your next chapter is ready for you. The cold becomes information, not pressure. And the fifth thing you get back is the largest. You are no longer the chimpanzee. A chimpanzee in an ostracism sequence cannot read what is happening to him. He only feels it. He has no language for it, no way to step back from the pain to study it, no chance to discover that the troop is the variable and not him. So the pain runs him out of his own group, exactly as it was designed to do. You are not in that position. You can read the weather. You can name the design. You can sit inside the silence with a different relationship to it than the silence expected. You will still leave eventually, because the building has decided, and the building will get what it has decided, but you will leave the way the chimpanzee never could. On your own terms. On your own clock. With your own next chapter waiting. With the right word about yourself in your own mouth, not the word the design was hoping you would carry. Most people who experience an atmospheric eviction never name it. They live inside the silence for months, then years if they stay, blaming themselves the whole time. They leave in confusion, and they carry that confusion through their next job, and sometimes through every job that follows, never quite trusting the air in any building again. That is the large group. That is most of the professionals who have ever walked, half broken, out of a workplace that was never going to keep them. You are not in that group anymore. As of tonight, you are in a much smaller one, the people who can read the temperature in the room while it is still dropping. And once you can read the temperature, you stop being a chimpanzee in the troop. You become a meteorologist in the storm. You will not control the weather. You will simply, finally, be the person in the room who can name it. Nobody is going to tell you to leave. They never were. That was always the design. Now you can read the design. Next time, you have learned to read the exit while you are still inside the building. But there is one more move in the design, and it happens after you have already left. Somewhere on a quiet afternoon, a phone is going to ring. Your old company on one end. Your new company on the other. 30 seconds of conversation. You will never hear it. That conversation will, more than your CV, more than your interview, more than your references, quietly decide your next chapter. It has a name. It has a structure. It has rules nobody has ever told you. That episode is next.